Nice to be here. Great to be in Heidelberg. And yeah, today I'm going to talk a bit about superpowers, about communities, and how the restrictions of society actually paved my way into 12 Minutes Me. I don't know if somebody heard about it. It's a community. Actually, 6 years ago, it started as a little project. And now it became like one of the biggest meetups on this planet, and definitely the biggest one in Germany. So what is it? This is actually a platform where 200 volunteers are working in 40 cities in 8 countries on like TED-like-ish events, but we have a little bit different focus. So what we try to do, we try to connect communities who usually don't speak with each other. Doctors, developers, artists, for example. So we have different topics, and we try to make bubbles burst and put them together. The baseline of my life is actually, Oliver, you shouldn't. Oliver, you have to. Or Oliver, you need to do something. And usually I listen to these people, but then I ask, okay, why do I have to do that? And sometimes they just don't tell me. They are not able to tell me. So actually, if they are not able to tell me what I have to do or what I need or whatever I have to do, then I say usually, who cares? And this is really the bottom line and the bottom line. So somehow I want to tell you my journey, how I came to organize this format in all these countries with all these people. So, and the first step is, I was in school, in the 7th year of my school. As you see, I'm a pretty tall person, and I was already a tall person in school. So I was about 2 meters, which is 6.6 feet, and I was pretty good in basketball. So I had like physical strength in basketball, so it was easy to outperform them. This was my superpower. So something I was better at this point of time. But the flip side of being tall is teachers, adults, especially teachers, they expect more from you. When you're physically taller than them, they expect you to know more. That can be good, sometimes it's not, I can tell you. So this kind of my performance in school. I was always pretty well in Germany we say MINT, in English it's STEM education, mathematics, physics and all that stuff. I was pretty well in sports and art, all the rest was good. But languages, I wasn't too much into languages. So I understood why I needed to learn English. At this point of time, in the 7th class, I didn't know any native speaker, and I didn't need it. And the German TV is actually perfectly dubbed. So I postponed it to university. It worked okay. But then there was another language. I was at this very special school. My parents wanted me to go there. And there was Latin. Who learned Latin? Who needs Latin in his daily life? Oh, there's one. You're a priest. And that's it. Like, for example, when I heard Latin, I had to learn it. And Old Greek, but let's not put that. I thought about Caesar, and Caesar is dead for a long time. And I didn't want to become pope or priest, even if this was a cool guy just in front of me here. And yeah, I like Caesar salad, but that's it. So somehow I figured out for myself this little function here. The bulb is like you're smart in something, and the time. And when you're really smart, for example, in mathematics, there's something like cultural borders. So my class teacher was my Latin teacher. And he said, Oliver, you have to be better. You need to be better. You cannot be that bad in Latin. My baseline, I told you. So I tried to arrange it. I tried to the education system kind of, I like to juggle the balls, and it didn't really work out. The Latin ball just flipped away. So my Latin teacher came to me and said, Oliver, you can repeat this class or you can just leave school. What's your choice? When you're already tall in the 7th class, and the people just shrink, it's no fun. You don't have superpowers because yeah, you are older. Then it doesn't make sense anymore. And yeah, so I decided to leave school, which was more or less the best decision I ever had made. Like, this Latin thing was really a pain in my ass. Yeah. And I really, at this point of time, didn't know if it was good if I leave school, but I figured out for myself I was a happier person. I had more time to do relevant stuff like playing computer games. And you have to understand my parents. They are socially conditioned. They learned when you have coal and when you have pressure, then there might be a diamond. So that's social conditioning. So I was pretty much in the middle of this picture. And I was a bit screwed there. It was not the most comfortable zone, you can imagine that. So at this point of time, when I left school, my parents had to kind of give up their dream of me becoming the next Nobel Prize winner. It was pretty sad for them, but I was pretty happy that I left the limelight. So bottom line, what did I learn? So I learned that focusing on Latin, just because somebody said I need to do that and didn't have any arguments, cost me a lot of time, and I couldn't develop my personal superpowers. Yeah, and I learned that it can be good when you're kind of out of the attention window of others. So I just did some magic on my computer, my parents didn't get it, and they said, let's see. Second story, a bit later. I was at the university already. I studied business administration because I didn't know what I have to study. And I had this course, intercultural management. And I had this idea, it might be relevant once in the future, but this theory thing wasn't really my thing. So I decided, let's go all in, let's move there for a year and work. It was awesome. I learned so much in India. It's a totally different culture. And the culture is a setting of rules. So we in the Western culture, in the Christian culture, we learned if there's just one example. If we have a deadline tomorrow, it means we have a time window of 24 hours to achieve that deadline. In India, it can happen that when somebody tells you tomorrow that you're going to get something tomorrow, but most probably you get it at some random point in time or in the next life. So sometimes it's just a polite excuse to say, not possible, sir. Because they have some different attitudes, some different cultures. They don't like to say no. And I just had to learn that. So I was hanging out with a lot of Hindus, and they explained all this cultural stuff to me. And for me, it made me, okay, that's different. In Germany, you would be in a no-go zone, in a culturally not accepted zone. You can reflect the same learning on lifespans. So me as a German, I like German beer and bratwurst, so maybe 85 years. Let's see. And then my Hindu friend said, okay, you're a Christian, you just have one lifespan. When you're dead, we live infinite times. We are reborn, reincarnation, great feature. Whatever we don't implement in this life, we do in next life. Of course, it's not exactly that way, but I just make it very simple. But if you hear that 100 times, you start to reflect. At this point of time, I was 26, now it's 10 years later. I had 44 good years until I thought I might retire at 70 years. So I had to achieve something. So a little panic came up, just a little. And a little panic helps you to reflect stuff. So I was reflecting on what I like, what I want to, how my cultural restrictions at home actually don't help me to develop my super skills, my skills that I can do better than others. And most of the people actually just accept and don't reflect. Because most of the people, most times you hear, yeah, we always did it like this. Who has heard that? Who hasn't heard that? Exactly. So, we always did it like this, and they don't give you a reason, again. But the baseline of my life. So I had to reflect. And you have to reflect about all these rules and paradigms of society, laws, whatever, culture. And culture varies a lot, and culture has subcultures and subcultures, and communities have their own culture, and every one of you have your own culture, and somehow you adapt or don't adapt. And you cannot play with a square basketball. So somehow you have to reflect. I need a round one. But if you just accept what society tells you, we would be like lemmings. Because our education system, for example, is actually from the industrial age. So we were actually educated to work perfectly on an assembly line. And we have all the kind of, we all learned a little Latin sometimes, or French, or Spanish, or whatever. We never used it again, but we never really focused. But what we learn when we watch TV is this. We have superheroes, and they all have different powers. Just imagine the Avengers having all hammers. How boring would that be? So they have heterogeneous powers, and they identified their skills. They know what they can do best. And they combine that in a team, and that actually ends up awesome. Maybe some of you might know Captain Planet, same story. So, bottom line again. What did we learn? So you have to reflect instead of accept sometimes. And it helps you to see where you are really strong at. I don't know how many people thought about your superpowers already, like where you're really better or where you could be better. Some people are just lazy. They feel comfortable in their cultural zone and really don't think about or consider to develop the superpowers. And heterogeneous teams are always better than homogeneous teams. And now in the digital age, look at the job market. Nobody finds any experts anymore. It's robbed, there's nobody. It's pretty hard to find special developers for something. It's just not possible. We need individual superpowers. So back to the 12 minutes thing. So actually, all our culture, our rules and everything is based on bubbles or silos. Different departments in companies who don't talk to each other. You always have like A, B, C, D, whatever department. You have different communities you are in. Some of you are in church, some of you are in soccer teams. Even the individuals are all different. And the problem is they're all in their bubbles, they don't talk. But what would happen if they would talk? Another example, new and old economy, everybody's talking about that. New economy guys, they say, we know digital stuff. You guys are old, you retire. And the old guys, they know how business works. They have the customers, and they don't talk to each other. How can that be? Entrepreneurs, just go to some business school. You see all the guys with nice shirts. If they sit together, and they might have great ideas, but they don't have a developer to put their idea into code. And the same with the developers. If you have a lot of developers, they develop something awesome, but nobody will ever hear about that. So you have to help them to get in touch. Same with startups and investors. Most funny thing, co-working spaces, you know them, right? Full of startups, packed. I need an investor. Definitely, just find one. But they don't know where to look. Investors, same story. They sit in their business club, in the country club, whatever. I read about these startups, but I never found, there was no fund actually, came to me. So give them a common ground. Give them something that actually helps them to connect, gives them a comfort zone, gives them rules and beer. So something like a playground, where it was a real easy setting of rules. In this case, it's 12 minutes me. You just know when it starts exactly at 7:12. You know every speaker, 3 speakers in the evening, have exactly 12 minutes time, the logo also countdown. And then it turns around. You have time to ask questions. After 96 minutes, you just leave, or you just stay and drink beer. So the people, it's forbidden to say polite forms. In Germany, it's Sie, or we always say duzen. We duzen uns alle. Whoever comes in, if it's a professor or if it's Chancellor Merkel. And she just have 12 minutes. And that's actually good, because the people just come in and they can leave whenever. They get a beer, and it's fun. We have been in Heidelberg in the past, but maybe we are coming back. But nevertheless, this is how it looks like. We are in the 40 cities on a monthly basis, so there's a lot of buzz. You're happily invited to come there, definitely, but I want you, at my last sentence, I want you to reflect, not accept, reflect what your superpower is, if you already know it, or what it could be, what you could work on, or if you, in what kind of culture, in what kind of bubbles you are organized or trapped, and request that and start something, make something. Thank you.